Om Savamangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadike Sharanye Triambake Gauri Narayani Namostute Narayani Namostute.
Namaste everybody. I welcome you in this panel discussion. And in this panel discussion, we have our guest today, Honorable Swami Suryananda Ji, President, European Yoga Federation. We welcome you, Swamiji. We have our guest, our own beloved Sukhdev Ji, President Yoga Vidya, Germany. We welcome you in your own ashram. We have Gopi Prasad Ji, President Yoga Vidya Peetham, India. We welcome you also.
Namaste.
The panel discussion topic will be Yoga Beyond. So in order to go into deep of this topic, as we know that the audience are already exposed to yoga, if I may ask Gopi Ji the first question, and meanwhile if anybody has any question, you can raise your hand, your question can also be taken. Let's utilize maximum of this discussion. We have amazing masters seated here, capable of answering almost everything. So Gopi Ji, my question to Wood will be to initiate. There are 8 limbs of yoga mentioned in Yoga Sutra. How yoga in Bhagavad Gita is different from that, and what are the similarities in that?
Wonderful. Yoga as the Shastra is Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is also called as Yoga Shastra. At the end of every Adhyaya, it is said, Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishnarjuna Samvade Ata Pratamodhyaya Ata Dvitiyodhyaya. That's how the Adhyayas of every Bhagavad Gita chapter are concluded. So it's quite clear that Bhagavad Gita is Yoga Shastra and Bhagavan Sri Krishna is Yogeshwara. Patanjali Yoga Sutras have brought the science which is explained in Bhagavad Gita into form that can be adopted by every one of us. So the relationship between Bhagavad Gita and Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, one of the sutras is what you just mentioned about Ashtanga Yoga. The relationship is that the science of yoga is Bhagavad Gita and the technology of yoga is Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. So that's the relationship I would establish between both. And to give a day-to-day example, there are many scientific principles such as speed, velocity, kinetic energy, potential energy, which all are enlightening us about the scientific principles that function in this material world. And when you bring all these technologies, all these scientific aspects together and build it into a technology, it becomes an automobile, a car, which functions on the scientific principles that I just mentioned. So science in one way enlightens us, technology on the other side enables us to make use of those scientific principles. So to answer you,
thank you.
That's the point.
Thank you very much. As Gopi Ji mentioned, that yoga is a science, and 8 limbs given by Maharshi Patanjali is the technology through which we can proceed towards that science. May I ask Sukhdev Ji, Sukhdevji, in Gita and different even Vedantic scriptures, we listen Upasana Yoga. We also listen about Karma Yoga. We also listen about Jnana Yoga. So would you like to throw some light upon Upasana Yoga and how it is connected with these 8 limbs of yoga?
Upasana yoga is the yoga of worship, so we usually call it Bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti yoga is very important. Bhagavad Gita is a scripture which speaks about all the different yogas. There are 18 chapters, 18 yogas, but quite a few are very strong on Bhakti yoga, how you develop devotion. And usually, whenever Krishna talks about Jnana yoga, in the end, he says, if that's too difficult, practice Bhakti Yoga. Worship me alone and I will lead you to moksha as well. Now in the Yoga Sutra, you find Bhakti Yoga in a few instances. You find in the first chapter, it said that those who worship God, who have Ishvara Pranidhana, will get God realization fast. So you could say Patanjali was a practitioner and also an empirist. So on one hand side he says how you can reach God realization, but also thought he analyzed his time and so how do people reach Kaivalya? He talks Kaivalya. And one possibility is that those who are devoted to God get liberation fast. And then he says, how will you get to, then he asks, who is Ishvara to whom you get devoted? And Patanjali doesn't mention a too specific form of God. He just says, God is one center of consciousness beyond suffering and beyond karma and beyond identification and beyond identification. So if you're devoted to any being like that, you can get realization. Then how will you reach God? He says by repeating a mantra. So he says by repeating Om, you can get contact to Ishvara. Now in the second chapter, he also mentions Ishvara Pranidhana as a means of the 5 niyamas, and one of the 3 means to overcome suffering. He talks about Kriya Yoga. Parts of Kriya Yoga is Ishvara Pranidhana, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana, and Tapas are the 3 parts of Kriya Yoga. If you want to overcome suffering, either you make effort, Tapas, or you understand, Swadhyaya, or you let go and hand it over to God, Ishvara Pranidhana. And the third part, what Patanjali mentions, Ishvara Pranidhana, is a little later among the niyamas, so, and that's one of the steps. But you see, in Yoga Sutra, you don't find much how to develop devotion. You have this by repeating a mantra, and some interpret, say, Svadhyaya is also study of scriptures or repetition of a mantra, and that by Svadhyaya you experience God. So that's what Patanjali also says. So it's a study of scriptures plus repetition of a mantra, you reach Ishvara Pranidhana. Here you could say Patanjali is science and Bhagavad Gita is the technical things. Because Bhagavad Gita explains, Patanjali explains why upasana, why worship bhakti is good. He doesn't explain much how you reach it, and Bhagavad Gita gets very detailed how you can have devotion. So the scriptures are complementary in a certain way.
So nice. So Swami Dayananda used to say that if you get confused, when you read Yoga Sutra and Bhagavad Gita, you will certainly get confused that who has taken from whom. They are so similar and they are complementing each other. So Sukhdevji mentioned about that devotion is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita and as Ishwar Pranidhana also in Yoga Sutra, and the means is Om. So we may ask Swamiji, this is about bhakti and upasana. Bhagavad Gita also talks about karma yoga. What are the glimpses of karma yoga we see in Patanjali Yoga Sutra? Or what is the parallel between these two in karma yoga? And what is karma yoga, if you would like to answer?
Qualsiasi tipo di yoga può essere profondo. Naturalmente dalle sacre scritture riceviamo molte indicazioni.
Normally from the sacred scripture we receive a lot of information.
Ma è la nostra attitudine a rendere un'azione più o meno profonda, più o meno di qualità.
But it is depending on our attitude to make an action more or less deep.
Quindi quando lo yoga entra nella vita, io posso celebrare lo yoga profondo nell'azione.
When yoga enters the life, enters someone's life, then I can start to celebrate and to make an action more or less deep.
È la totale presenza della mia consapevolezza a rendere l'azione profonda.
Is the consciousness that makes it go deeper or less or swallow.
Faccio un esempio, respiriamo tutti.
Let's take an example, breathing. Every one of us breathe.
Ma quanti sono consapevoli che stanno respirando?
But how many of us are really conscious that we are breathing at the moment?
E questa consapevolezza a rendere diversa l'azione, perché se una persona non sa come respira non può neanche correggersi.
And it's this consciousness that makes the difference in action. Because if we are not conscious, how can we make an action better?
Quindi qualsiasi cosa può diventare yoga se io vivo connesso.
Anything can become yoga if I live connected.
E come lo yoga mi indica, devo essere connesso con la parte fisica e la parte non fisica.
As the yoga teach, we have to stay connected with the physical part and the non-physical part.
Posso aggiungere ancora una cosa?
Perfect. And where do you see the reflections of karma yoga in Patanjali Yoga Sutra?
La frase più famosa è quando la Bhagavad Gita mi insegna a essere presente e a agire e fare un'azione di qualità. Yoga, karma sukha, shalam. Lo yoga è qualità nell'azione.
We have to remember one of the very important sentences in the Bhagavad Gita, Yoga karma sukha shalam. Yoga is the ability in action.
Che significa che con tutte le mie qualità intellettive o no, devo essere presente nell'azione.
It means that with all this quality, I have to be completely present.
If I may add something?
Yes. Please. Even anybody of you wants to ask any question, you can raise your hands or you write the question and send it to me. Yes.
Again, Yoga Sutra and Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is much more elaborate on karma yoga. In the Yoga Sutra, you find a few things. Of course, you find a few times mentioned Maitri Bhava. Maitri Bhava is one of the main words. There are only so few verses in the Yoga Sutra, and Maitri Bhava is listed a few times. This means compassion. So compassion is important to Patanjali. And if you take the 3rd chapter of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, when he says, if you want to understand, I'm not translate it in a simple way, if you want to understand a person, feel into the heart of the person and concentrate on the navel center and on the throat center. Try to enter into the body of others. Usually people think this means you with your astral body enter your body and enter somebody else. Maybe that's also meant. But more is you enter into other people's feet, you could say. So Patanjali is more into how to develop compassion, how to develop love, you could say. And of course, Patanjali also mentions ahimsa, meaning non-violence. That is Patanjali's take on karma yoga. In Bhagavad Gita, concept of karma yoga is less compassion and less this part, but it's more do your duty, do your dharma, without attachment, without identifying, without longing for the fruit. Do what you have to do and be detached. So I think here both scriptures have to go together, because you need compassion. But having compassion, you also need to have something to do. Patanjali doesn't say what and how you should do something. And here you could say Patanjali puts again the goal, what you should develop, and he puts meditation techniques, how you can develop the attitude, and how to put it into practice, Bhagavad Gita will say.
Thank you, Sukhdev ji and Swamiji. Swamiji mentioned an attitude, right attitude with proper awareness or consciousness is Karma Yoga. So Devji added the reflection of Karma Yoga in terms of Maitri Bhava and Ahimsa in Yoga Sutra. Gopiji, when we are talking about Karma Yoga, I'm doing many works. What are the checklists, if I may? If all things are there, then it's Karma Yoga. If it is not there, then it's only Karma, not Karma Yoga. So what converts my Karma into Karma Yoga? Point-wise point checklist. Tick, tick, tick. What will be that?
Bhagavan says in one of the shlokas, Adhishtanam tata karta karanancha pruthak vidham vividhascha pruthak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. These are 5 aspects as far as anybody who is engaged into an action. You have to make sure that these 5 elements are existing. Adhishtanam, which is the body. And if you want to look at it from a larger perspective, it is the organization. Tatha karta. So the one who is doing the action. Karanancha prudhagvidam. Many tools that are used in conducting that particular activity. And if you apply that to a larger organization, it could be the departments, HR department, marketing department, production department. Vividhascha prutak chesta. Chesta is the function that you do. Each person has a function to perform, and what function are you doing? What role are you playing? That is chesta. And then the most important aspect that actually turns a karma into karma yoga is the daivam. So with a humble submission to the devotion and with a sense of being just an instrument of what I am doing, and you conduct your activity without any selfish desires out of it, but purely as a duty-mindedness, that turns your daily activity into karma yoga.
Perfect. So now we have a checklist, a body, or the organization, the doer, having some tools and a function. This is what is karma. But if the same karma is done with this feeling of submission as an instrument in the service of higher without claim of I am doing it, then it becomes a karma yoga. That's very great. Thank you very much. So now have we understood karma yoga and its checklist. Now the second question comes as, Gita offers many yogas. Where should we begin then? Should I start with Karma Yoga or Upasana Yoga or Jnana Yoga? I should start from where? So I will start from Swamiji in asking this.
Ha detto che siccome ci sono tante tipologie di yoga, parlando Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, da quale bisognerebbe partire?
From where to start? Should I start with Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga?
Sì.
Hatha, did I say that? Okay, that maybe Hatha Yoga.
Sì, diciamo che lo yoga incomincia con il risveglio della consapevolezza, la presa di coscienza della realtà.
Poi però lui ti ha chiesto proprio, forse non ti ho tradotto bene, con quale tipologia di yoga bisogna
Con questa.
partire? Ah, ok.
Partire
Ok.
con un risveglio della consapevolezza,
First of all,
prima di tutto,
to get into the yoga, we have to start with to awake our consciousness.
capire che la nostra costituzione è parte fisica e parte non fisica,
Understand deeply that our constitution is made out of the physical part and non-physical part.
mantenere queste due parti unite,
Keep those two parts united.
e questo è già yoga.
And this is already yoga.
Anche se non ha un nome è già yoga.
And even though if we don't give it a name, this is yoga.
E quando queste due parti non sono unite, per esempio,
And when these two parts are not united, for example,
non siamo nemmeno vivi.
we are not alive anyway.
Perché secondo la nostra tradizione la vita deriva dalla presenza di una parte fisica e di una parte non fisica.
The tradition tells us that we are from the unification of these two parts, physical and
E
non-physical.
quando queste due parti si separano è la morte.
When these two parts are separated, we are dead.
Quindi possiamo dichiarare che in linea di massima siamo morti che camminiamo.
We can roughly say that most of the times we are dead, that we are just walking.
Prima di tutto ripartiamo da questo concetto e poi iniziamo delle cose più semplici, troviamo la vita nello yoga più semplice possibile.
Let's start from this very basic concept and let's make it in a very easy way, simple way.
Poi scopriremo che ogni strada è giusta, ogni strada ci porta verso la direzione.
And then, very slowly, we'll understand that every way will lead us to the same final goal.
Quindi si inizia dalle cose più semplici.
So it's important to start with simple things.
E di solito il corpo ha le sue esigenze e chiede prima di tutto, ha le sue necessità e si deve partire per forza da lì.
For instance, the body has got its own necessity, its own needs, and we have to start from there.
Via via salendo.
And slowly coming up.
Poi nella tradizione di Patanjali lo yoga profondo inizia dalla capacità della focalizzazione della mente.
And then slowly going towards the Patanjali's yoga, we see that it all starts with the concentration, with the full concentration of the mind.
L'uomo oggi
focusing.
ha perso questa capacità di concentrazione, ha perso la sua capacità di focalizzazione perché la mente è molto accelerata.
The modern man has really lost this ability to get in touch with his focused mind, because the mind goes here and there, is very much moving.
Quindi deve ripartire un po' dalle cose elementari per rieducare la mente, poi può affrontare qualsiasi tipo di yoga, non prima.
So it's important to start with the very basic, fundamental things, and then from there build up any type of yoga.
E vivere pienamente questa unità, parte fisica, parte non fisica, maschile, femminile. La parola Hatha Yoga, che tutti pensano che sia lo yoga, quello ginnastica yoga.
It's fundamental then to put the two different parts together. Even the feminine part and the masculine part. Let's take, for instance, the word Hatha Yoga. Everybody knows Hatha Yoga, and they all think it's just physical.
Il progetto dell'Hatha Yoga è grande. La parola Hatha Yoga ci mette di fronte a una realtà grande, che è quella di mantenere unite due parti di noi.
The concept of Hatha Yoga instead is very deep, and it gets a big concept inside. For instance, the word itself put together the two opposites.
Thank you. Thank you, Suji. Yes.
To make it simple, in the West, people want to start practicing something. So there's not a question of which yoga you do, the bhakti jnana, etc. So which practice. So they will start either with asanas, pranayama, relaxation, or they'll start with meditation. So first start practicing something. And then as Swamiji said, practice it with body and all your mind. That's the first thing. Then this will lead to experience. And then once you have the experience, then you go to Bhakti Jnana, Raja, or whatever
Everywhere.
other yoga. Yes, yes. But first practice. So the same, anybody here, most important is practice every day. And practice, if possible, 1 hour every day, and then you have a good basis. And from there, spiritualize the life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Sukhdevji. Yes, please.
Could you say some words to the social aspect of the Bhagavad Gita? Because I feel, as you said, in yoga we have to clean the mirror. That's what the Bhagavad Gita tells all of us. But we as a society, we have a complete dusty mirror, and very powerful forces in the world always put dust to our mirror, so we doubt the landing on the moon or 9/11 or this war or that war. We have to doubt everything because misinformation is given too much.
Thank you for the question. Would you like to go for this? Yeah. The message of Bhagavad Gita for a better society.
Bhagavan says, the society, the fragments in the society are inevitable because people are not made the same. We are made with different motivations, different looks, different appeal. So, given our natural differences, it is quite natural for us to distinguish from each other. However, how Bhagavad Gita suggests on a social level, if we have to, then Bhagavan is clearly saying that Chatur Varnyam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. Bhagavan says all the Varnas, the 4 categories of people that we generally are. Today we may be into different kind of occupations, and maybe we are in different occupations in same lifetime. For some time I was a teacher, and now suddenly I joined a police force. So I'm changing totally into a different varna according to the Bhagavad Gita system. But then if you get to the roots of it, it is all based on the guna and karma. Guna is the innate nature of the human being, the swabhava of a human being, and then karma, the kind of occupation that we are getting into for our livelihood. We have to take care of ourselves, we have to take care of our family, we have to feed our family, and for that to happen, we have to engage into any kind of income generating activity. And as a result of that, we are able to provide to our family. So, for that purpose, whatever is the occupation that we are getting into, and these 2 criteria, guna and karma, are trying to distinguish people one from the other. And we are trying to group into those areas in order to share some expertise, share some better practices, and become better in our chosen professions. So, as long as we are aware of the fact that we are all the same at the base level, it is only because of our guna and karma and the purpose of conducting this life we are getting into different situations and different segments and groups. These would not result into any kind of negative reactions. So the point here is for the society to go back 2 steps and think to the roots, to the origin, at our base level, who we are. And that would solve most of the misconceptions in my view.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else who would like to reflect on this? Bhagavad Gita's message for a better society.
I want to answer you. Lo sforzo sociale che dobbiamo fare
the social attempt that we ought to do
per cambiare la nostra qualità della vita
in order to change the quality of our life
è cambiare e mettere in ordine gli obiettivi che la società ha.
and to change the objects that society has.
La società moderna ha un obiettivo principale
The modern society has a principal object
che è quella del lavoro
that is working.
e finora hanno costruito solo malessere in questo modo.
Until now, this principle has built just not state of wellness.
La natura ci ha mandato un messaggio potente
Nature gave us a very important message
con il Covid.
with COVID.
La società doveva capire che non poteva essere il lavoro messo come primo obiettivo, perché senza salute non si può fare niente.
The society at that point has to make itself a question. The work, it cannot be put at the first place, because then when the health is missing, we miss all.
Quindi lo sforzo che dobbiamo fare è sostituire come primo obiettivo la salute dopo il lavoro, prima salute.
So we have to make an effort to make the first object wellness and then put work.
E qui ci viene incontro il sanscrito,
And then comes, we go to Sanskrit for a help,
perché la parola salute è swastha.
because the words for wellness is swasta.
Essere nel proprio sé.
Stay in the self.
Questa è considerata salute per la tradizione orientale. Essere nel proprio sé, questa è la salute.
To be in the self. This is health.
Se ho male a un ginocchio non posso essere in contatto col mio sé. Se ho mal di testa non posso meditare.
If I have a knee problem or if I have a headache, I cannot be in the self because it's difficult to meditate.
Se vogliamo cambiare, dobbiamo impegnarci per far cambiare l'obiettivo lavoro con la salute. Lavoro è importante, ma è secondo, non è primo.
We have to change, we have to make a little effort because work is important, of course. But first of all, we should put the health first, the wellness.
Thank you, Swamiji. Sukhdev would like to answer the same question.
Yeah. We cannot change the whole world, but everybody has to see what is my dharma, what can I do, and then we do what we have to do with all our heart. We feel as an instrument, and we ask God to work through us, and we do it as well as we can, even-minded in success and failure, even-minded whether we get praise or the opposite. We do what we can and offer everything to the Lord. Then we can change the world a little bit.
I agree, correct.
Yes. A quick question. You have a question? Yes.
Ich kann es nur auf Deutsch. Yeah, she's speaking in German, but I can try to
Yes.
okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Gut. Ich habe eine Frage. Also ist nicht die größte Liebe und Hingabe und Mitgefühl, wenn man Lehrer wird, also wenn man sozusagen das, was man alles angelernt haben, also sozusagen leer wird, dass das, was die Wirklichkeit ist, auch erstmal hervorkommen kann. Wenn das Gefäß voll ist mit allem, was man gehört, angelernt hat sozusagen, dann kann eigentlich gar nicht das, was Wirklichkeit ist, hervorkommen, noch was anderes. Was gerne vergessen wird, was ist eigentlich die Illusion? Die größte Illusion ist eigentlich doch die Person, mit der man sich identifiziert. Und wenn die Person, also mit dem, was man sich identifiziert, dann sich löst, dann kann auch dementsprechend das hervorkommen, was man ist. Man macht es manchmal zu kompliziert auch.
So my question is like it's.
If you can summarize the question, do not need to translate all. Yes.
So my question is whether the assumption is it like that? Isn't it like like we have learned and been trained in so much, like our vessel is full to the brim, and isn't it like the biggest compassion and the biggest love, like just to empty that vessel first, so it can come on the surface what really is inside, what's really there. So isn't it like that?
Yes.
And then we can also step back like from the identification and the personality and all that.
To emptying the vessel so that whatever is inside should come out. Because we are running short of time, maybe one or two liner answers. Yes. So Devji, go ahead.
I just answer yes.
I just add up to it. Your thought is clear, and that is what we call avidya. The root cause of all miseries and sufferings is because of avidya, wrong knowledge. Vidya is the right knowledge, the knowledge of the self, the soul.
Thank you. Hope that answers. Probably whole knowledge is innate, but when we remove avidya, as he said, then that knowledge can sprout up. Yes.
Vikramji, I have just two sentences to say.
Yes.
Two sentences.
Quick question, yes.
The answer to your question is not an answer, but a contribution. I just wanted to say what Sukadevji said. We begin somewhere. We begin with a practice which takes you further. And as a sevaka who lives at Yoga Vidya, we have had experiences here where people come just because they saw something on social media, something on Instagram, something at the Experience Festival, and they begin with the practice. And just as Swamiji said, you start somewhere, you start with the physical, and finally they go deeper and deeper. And if everybody does that, they just come in some form of or the other, begin the practice, and everybody does that, then I suppose the dust from the mirror will vanish.
Thank you.
Someday.
Thank you. Yes.
Om
You have
Namah
a question?
Shivaya.
Quick question. This is the last question in one-liner question, and only one-liner answer from here because we are running short of time. Yeah.
It's a contribution, so I'll make it short. It's something that was shared by my teacher Tristan, so I'm just trying to represent it. When asking about the social aspect of the Bhagavad Gita, the interpretation helps that it is all one person. Arjuna is the seeker, Krishna is the higher self, and the families standing across the battlefield are our obstructions. And the Dharma is to face them and not to be soft with them, but to deal with the obstructions, and that can be like a guideline for social interaction as well, as in being truthful and honest when encountering other people, but with the same respect that you would with yourself when you look at the obstructions and all the old and heavy karma and trauma that might be there still residing within you.
So thank you for your contribution.
Maybe one more question. I think there was one more question.
Okay.
Did somebody have a question still? No. Okay.
Thank you. As you mentioned that there is a higher self and there is a lower self, and raising the lower self to the higher self. So,
Dr. Vikrant,
I think
can I only tell you, nell'entusiasmo di costruire un'immagine, ho detto, e siccome si parlava di sociale, ho detto cambiare il sociale. Però sono perfettamente d'accordo con quello che sta dicendo Sukadev, che però il cambiamento inizia dall'individuo, dalla persona. Ci tengo a precisarlo, perché a dare un'immagine, siccome parlavamo di sociale, dell'insieme, ho detto questo. Però il nostro fratello Sukadev ha ragione che ogni cambiamento inizia cambiando noi.
I just would like to point out something, is that we were just talking about the social life. So I point out that to start the social, we have to start from health. But I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with what Sukadevji said when he said that we have to start to change from within.
Thank you. So we had a wonderful discussion.
Can I just add?
Yes, please.
There is one shloka that kinds of puts the order of priority to the one of the Shreyo Hignanam Abhyasat. So Bhagavan is giving in the shloka one by the other that better than action without knowledge of what we are doing is the knowledge. So better than a blind abhyasa is knowledge, and better than knowledge, that is jnana, is dhyana, and better than dhyana is karma phalatyaga, that you do an action, produce the results, and give these results away to someone without anticipating anything in return. That is the order of priority what Bhagavan himself has suggested in Bhagavad Gita.
Thank you very much. So we had a wonderful discussion here, friends. We had Gopi ji saying this, that Gita is the science and Yoga Sutra gives the technology for easy adoption. Gita also informs us that there are 5 parameters for any action to be called as karma yoga: the body or the organization, the karta or the doer, the tools, the function. And 5th, the most important is, whatever you're doing with all these karanas is the submission and doing as an instrument in the hands of higher. He also mentioned that in the society, there are different types of people. Lord Krishna says that varnas means the color of the personality, and the guna is the color of personality, and karma is the action you do. When your action and your nature becomes one, that becomes your swadharma. So we should act as per our nature. And which is the nature? The higher nature that we have. Sukhdev ji mentioned that Upasana Yoga is about devotion, and it is, Yoga Sutra says, fastest way to reach to your own higher self is called Ishvara Pranidhana. He also mentioned the definition of Ishvara as one, Purusha Vishesh, who does not have bondage of karma and who is free from all the miseries. So we all have the hidden potential to be Ishvara by being free from the bondage of karma and to get elevated from the miseries. And the method and the technology is Om, is the method. He also mentioned about the Kriya Yoga, tapas, doing your best possible efforts and accepting all the challenges come in between. Swadhyaya is the self-study and the study of scriptures, and Ishwar Pranidhana, the surrender. He said it starts with compassion. Have compassion, which is the central part of dharma in any case. And he also mentioned that Gita gives more importance of duty, Yoga Sutra to the compassion. But if you want to start with practice. Practice of asanas or meditation, have that experience, and finally that experience will help you to understand your own swadharma. Swamiji mentioned that karma yoga is any action with proper attitude and awareness. That why you are doing it, and when an action is done with attitude and proper awareness, it leads to yoga karmshu kaushalam. Then it becomes the dexterity in action. And he said to start with, generate the awareness, and to know that there is a physical aspect of knowledge and body, and there is a non-physical para and apara aspect of everything around, and always leads to that one God. The way to start to that is concentration with focused mind. And to create a better society, he mentioned that preserve nature, as Bhagavad Gita says, and focus on oneness. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita that Jnani is somebody who is a Samadarshi, sees everybody as equal. And one last contribution from my side also, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita chapter 3 mentions that if you want to create a great society, assure that you should be a contributor rather than only a consumer. Because if a person only consumes and does not contribute back, Krishna says he is a thief. So wherever we are consuming something, ask ourselves, have we contributed? And together in these 3 days, 5 days, we have certainly consumed and contributed both in creating a greater society. Thank you very much for being here today and being a part of this panel discussion. Thank you.